Imagine walking through like a really dense forest
Right.
and you look up and see this massive, just vibrant
Oh,
branch.
yeah.
It's blooming, it's covered in green leaves, and it looks so sturdy you could, throw a rope over it and swing from it.
Right.
But it's actually a complete illusion because deep down at the base of the tree, the central root has been cleanly severed.
Wow.
Yeah. So that branch is actually dead. It's operating entirely on what botanists might call borrowed strength.
Borrowed strength. I like that.
Right. And today, we're taking a deep dive into the human equivalent of that exact illusion.
It's such a pervasive thing, too.
It really is. We're working off this really fascinating meditation today. It's titled The Taproot Day 123 3dmayo.pdf. And our mission for this duck dive is to explore the fundamental posture of a human life.
Yeah, getting right to the core of it.
Exactly. We're looking at, what actually grounds us, what severs us from our own potential, and how we can possibly maintain any real connection in an increasingly chaotic world.
Because it is chaotic.
It's extremely. So, okay, let's unpack this, starting with that central physical mechanic of growth.
Well, it's the perfect starting point, because you really can't understand the psychological or like the spiritual mechanics of your life until you understand how growth physically operates.
Right.
The source document brings in this reflection from Hall of Fame football coach Tony Dungy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's looking at a very famous line from the Gospel of John, chapter 15. The line is, "I am the vine, you are the branches."
Okay, yeah, a classic text.
Right. And Dungy points out the literal anatomy of a vine here. Like, the branches are the parts that interact with the world.
They're doing all the visible work.
Exactly. They send out tendrils, they wind upward, they are constantly reaching for the sunlight. So they look incredibly dynamic.
But the energy allowing them to reach isn't actually generated in the branches themselves.
Precisely. The generative power comes entirely from the taproot, that central vine that's buried completely out of sight in the dark soil.
Just doing the quiet work.
Yeah. And if you take a pair of shears and cut that taproot, the branches don't just instantly vanish.
Right, they don't just go poof.
Exactly. For a few days or even weeks, depending on the plant, they keep their color. They look totally fine.
But they're not.
No, life has stopped flowing. The branch is now just metabolizing its stored nutrients, so it's living on borrowed strength. And wilting is, well, it's an absolute mathematical certainty at that point.
I see this exact phenomenon in the business world all the time.
Oh, for sure.
Like, think about startup culture. You have these companies burning through massive amounts of venture capital cash.
The hyper-growth phase.
Right. They have the beautiful office space, the ping pong tables, the aggressive marketing campaigns, projecting this image of massive, vibrant success.
Right, looking like that healthy branch.
But really, they are the beautiful cut flowers sitting in a vase on your kitchen table.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Like, they smell amazing and they brighten up the room, but they have no actual revenue model.
Yeah, the root is gone.
The moment they were snipped from the soil of actual value creation, they started dying. The beauty is just a temporary performance.
That is a brilliant lateral connection, really.
Yeah.
And it maps perfectly onto individual human behavior, too.
How so?
Well, we often spend our entire lives trying to be the most impressive cut flower in the room.
Yeah.
Completely ignoring the fact that our internal taproot has been severed.
Just performing for everyone else.
Exactly. And the text gives us this staggering real-world example of this illusion in professional sports. Specifically, it looks at the tragic trajectory of the golfer Payne Stewart.
Oh, man, yeah. For anyone unfamiliar with 1990s golf, Payne Stewart was a guy who, by every external measurable metric, had completely arrived.
Oh, absolutely.
He was incredibly famous, not just for his swing, but for his really loud performative identity.
The outfits.
The outfits, he wore these traditional knickers, a Ben Hogan-style cap, and he would deliberately wear the colors of whatever NFL team was closest to the tournament city he was playing in.
Which is such a wild move in golf.
Right. He was outgoing and fun-loving, but he was also notoriously egotistical.
Yeah, he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
He did, because he was just constantly performing his success for the gallery.
He was the vibrant branch. Winning 24 PGA Tour events, including major championships. But underneath all that external validation, the root system was totally detached.
He was on borrowed strength.
He was operating on the borrowed strength of pure ego. But then, in 1998, a profound shift happens.
Right.
Stewart finds his faith, he welcomes Christ into his life, and the internal transformation is just radical.
Like a complete 180.
Yeah. People close to him notice that the loud, defensive ego is suddenly replaced by this deep equanimity. He finds the taproot.
And it culminates in this incredibly cinematic moment. It's the 1999 U.S. Open.
An iconic moment.
Right. He is standing on the 18th green, having just secured this massive victory. He raises his fist in the air, but the camera catches what he's wearing on his wrist.
Yeah.
It isn't a luxury watch or some massive sponsor logo. It's a simple, woven WWJD bracelet.
What would Jesus do?
Exactly. His 10-year-old son had given it to him. So the guy known for his flashy NFL outfits is wearing a kid's bracelet on the biggest stage in the world.
It's beautiful.
He was finally connected to a real source.
But you know, the reality of that connection comes with a really heartbreaking timeline in the text.
It really does.
Because 4 months after that U.S. Open victory, in October 1999, Payne Stewart boards a private jet, and a faulty airflow valve causes a catastrophic loss of cabin pressure.
He's just so terrifying.
The plane flies on autopilot across the country until it simply runs out of fuel and crashes. He dies right at the moment the world is beginning to see this beautiful, rooted version of who he was becoming.
It feels incredibly unfair, doesn't it? Like you finally figure it out, you finally connect to the taproot, and then you don't even get to enjoy the harvest.
It does feel unfair, yeah, if we measure life by the harvest. But there's a profound insight here from the novelist Leo Tolstoy.
Okay, what does Tolstoy say?
When reflecting on the life of Jesus, Tolstoy pointed out that Jesus is the ultimate historical example of someone who did not see the fruits of his work during his own lifetime.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the lesson hidden inside Payne Stewart's sudden passing is that connection to the taproot is not some transactional arrangement. You are not promised the visible yield.
So it's not a vending machine.
Exactly. Connection is an act of trust. You trust that the nutrients flowing through you are producing exactly what you were created to bear, even if the timeline extends far beyond your own life.
Which completely upends our standard definition of success.
Entirely.
If success isn't about collecting the most fruit before you die, but rather, maintaining the integrity of the connection itself, it begs a much darker psychological question.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, why do we voluntarily reach for the shears? What convinces us to sever our own taproot?
Well, the answer across multiple disciplines, from ancient philosophy to modern psychology, is always the exact same pair of shears.
And what are they?
Ego and certainty. Ryan Holiday articulates this perfectly in his concept that ego is the enemy.
Right. Great book.
Yeah. Ego is the deeply held protective belief that you have already figured it all out. It's the internal voice that convinces the branch it is entirely self-sufficient and no longer requires the dirt of the root system.
Right, wait, I have to push back here, or at least play devil's advocate for a second.
Bring it on.
We are talking about functioning in the real world, and a lot of that involves leadership. Doesn't a good leader need to project absolute certainty so their team feels safe following them? Like if you are a surgeon in an operating room or a CEO navigating a market crash, you can't be sitting there acting all porous and wishy-washy.
It is a totally valid pushback, but it highlights a dangerous semantic trap we fall into.
Okay, how so?
There is a massive psychological distinction between confidence and certainty. Confidence is a posture rooted in genuine competence and earned humility. The confident surgeon says, I have the training to navigate this crisis, and because I am confident, I am constantly scanning the monitors to see if the reality on the ground is shifting.
They're staying open.
Yes. Certainty, on the other hand, is a rigidly closed posture.
Meaning the mind is already made up, regardless of the monitors.
Exactly. Certainty is just an accumulation of unexamined assumptions.
Oh, I like that phrasing.
Right. When a leader operates from certainty, the question is no longer being asked. The incoming data is ignored because the ego demands that the initial assessment was flawless. It seals the branch off from reality.
Which is exactly what Dweck talks about.
Yes. We see the mechanics of this perfectly described in Carol Dweck's research on mindsets.
This maps so well onto Dweck's fixed versus growth mindset framework.
It really does.
Let's look at how a fixed mindset actually manifests physically in your day-to-day life. Imagine you are in a high-stakes workplace meeting, right? You pitch an idea, and a colleague points out a legitimate flaw in your logic. Now, if you're operating with a fixed mindset, everything is tied to your identity.
It feels personal?
Very. That feedback isn't just data, it's an attack on your worth. Your amygdala fires, your chest tightens, your fight or flight response kicks in.
And you get defensive.
Exactly. You immediately start defending a bad idea just to prove you are smart.
Because a fixed mindset is studying, working, and arguing merely to be more known. It's a performance metric.
Always performing.
Contrast that with the growth mindset, which the text aligns beautifully with Eastern wisdom highlighted in Tolstoy's calendar.
Right.
The growth mindset studies to know more, period. So in that same meeting, the person with the growth mindset hears the critique, remains porous, and actually leans in.
Because their ego isn't threatened?
Exactly. Their identity is not tied to being infallible. It's tied to the process of discovery.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If the growth mindset is so obviously superior and certainty is so clearly dangerous, why do we almost all default to the fixed mindset? Like, why do we fiercely protect this ego that turns us into dying cut flowers?
Oh, we protect it because dropping the ego requires us to stand completely naked in front of the mirror.
Oh, the mirror.
And the mirror is terrifying. There's a searing quote from James Baldwin in The Source. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.
That is so heavy. The mirror forces you to look at the gap between who you are performing to be, the guy walking the fairway in the NFL, colors demanding everyone look at him,
Right.
and who you actually are when you're sitting alone in the quiet of your own house.
And that gap is filled with our unexamined assumptions and our deeply avoided fears.
The stuff we don't want to deal with.
Exactly. Ralph Waldo Emerson argued that if you are not actively conquering some fear every single day, you are entirely missing the secret of life.
Every single day.
That's the argument. But conquering fear is messy. So ego steps in as a defense mechanism to spare us that daily messiness.
Just to numb it out.
Yeah, ego whispers that we are already brave enough, already smart enough, already perfect.
It's an anesthetic.
It really is.
And the spiritual teacher Pema Chodron explains the side effects of that anesthetic so well.
Her work is great.
It is. She says we walk around believing the goal of life is to permanently pass the test, to solve the problem once and for all so we never have to hurt again.
Right, the final arrival.
But she points out the actual rhythm of human existence is that things come together, they fall apart, and then they come together again.
And the ego cannot tolerate things falling apart.
Because that means failure.
Right. Falling apart implies failure. So instead of making room for the grief, the joy, and the natural dissolution of things, the ego builds a ladder.
A ladder.
Yeah. It tells us that if we just climb high enough, acquire enough wealth, or achieve enough status, we can escape the cycle of falling apart altogether.
Which leads to the most devastating realization a person can have, which is realizing you have leaned your ladder against the wrong building.
Oh, yeah.
Think about Payne Stewart pre-1998. You can have immaculate discipline. You can wake up at 4 a.m., optimize your calendar, execute your business strategy flawlessly, and climb faster than anyone else.
Yeah, you can win the rat race.
But if that ladder is leaned against the wall of ego and performance, your ultimate success is actually your ultimate tragedy. You spent your whole life climbing toward a severed route.
This raises an important question for you, listening to this right now.
Yeah, think about this.
Look at your own daily grind. Are you living your life from a frantic need to prove yourself to the world? Or are you operating from a grounded commitment to improve yourself?
Prove versus improve.
Right, because externally, the climbing looks identical. The discipline is the same.
Right.
But the building you are leaning against determines whether you are alive or just functioning on borrowed strength.
Let's make this highly practical. Let's say you realize your ladder is on the wrong building. You have the courage to climb down, drop the shears, and look in the mirror.
Good first step.
How do you actually reconnect to the taproot in the middle of a chaotic Tuesday when your inbox is exploding and your kids are screaming?
Well, the text suggests the mechanism of reconnection operates on two fronts: internal equanimity and external intention.
Okay, let's break down equanimity first.
It is often misunderstood as putting on a fake smile while the house burns down around you.
Right, toxic positivity.
Exactly. But equanimity is not passivity or emotional suppression. It is the discipline of rootedness. When a storm rolls through a forest, a healthy branch doesn't rigidly fight the wind.
It bends.
It bends, absorbing the kinetic energy without snapping.
There is a parable from Anthony de Mello that perfectly captures the psychology of this.
Well, I love this one.
Yeah, a master tells his students that traveling is always easier than stopping. Why? Because when you are traveling, you are psychologically projecting into the future.
Always on to the next thing.
Right. You are holding on to a dream of what the destination will be like. It's a form of escapism. But the moment you stop traveling and stand still, you are forced to face the raw, unedited reality of the present moment.
It's confronting.
It is. And de Mello says that when you finally face reality without trying to escape it, real change happens. But it is unwilled change.
Unwilled change. That is a profound physiological and psychological truth.
Yeah.
I mean, you do not scream at a branch to grow fruit. You don't grit your teeth and force it. Growth is the natural byproduct of remaining connected.
Staying attached.
Yeah. And the spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle provides the smallest, most accessible mechanism for achieving this. One conscious breath.
It sounds almost too simple. Like, how does one breath actually do anything?
It works because of human neurology. When your ego flares up, say in that stressful workplace meeting, your amygdala hijacks your brain.
You're in fight or flight.
Exactly. One conscious breath acts as a manual override. It engages your parasympathetic nervous system, lowering your heart rate and breaking the automated panic cycle.
It gives you a beat.
In that momentary pause, executive function returns. You drop the shears.
Yeah.
You reconnect to the root.
And from that grounded internal state, we can move to the external discipline, which is intention.
Right.
In the golf world, Pia Nelson and Lynn Marriott wrote a definitive book called Every Shot Must Have a Purpose.
Classic.
Their core philosophy is intention over outcome. You focus entirely on the quality of the decision, not the result.
It is the physical application of Dweck's growth mindset. Because once the club face strikes the golf ball, your control drops to absolute zero.
It's gone.
Yeah. A gust of wind might knock it out of the air, or it might hit a sprinkler head and bounce into a lake. If your identity is tied to the outcome, you will be destroyed by the sprinkler head.
You'll just fall apart.
But you have complete, unbroken authority over your intention, your setup, and the quality of your decision before you ever initiate the swing.
Albert Einstein famously applied this exact same logic to problem solving. Yeah, he said that if he had 1 hour to solve a problem and his life depended on the solution, he would spend the first 55 minutes strictly determining the proper questions to ask.
Oh, that's brilliant.
The solution is just the outcome. The outcome is born entirely out of the intention of the question.
Operating this way requires an immense tolerance for delayed gratification. It requires yielding to what Tolstoy called the two most powerful warriors, patience and time.
Patience and time.
Equanimity is simply the act of getting your ego out of the way so patience and time can do their necessary work.
We have spent a lot of time on the internal mechanics today, facing the mirror, taking the conscious breath.
Yes.
But the final dimension of this shifts the focus outward. Staying connected to the taproot radically alters how we interact with the people in our lives.
It absolutely does, because a connected branch doesn't just draw nutrients, it provides shade.
That's a great way to put it.
There's a beautiful historical illustration of this involving Baroness Louise Lehzen, who served as the governess to a young Queen Victoria.
Okay, what does she do?
Well, when historians look back at how she shaped one of the most powerful monarchs in history, Lehzen's philosophy was striking. She insisted she did not create the Queen's legendary backbone. She merely nourished what was already present in the child.
I love that distinction so much. The difference between creating and nourishing changes the entire neurological approach to parenting, to managing a team, or just being a friend.
Completely shifts the dynamic.
If you think you have to create someone's success, you act like a sculptor trying to violently hammer a piece of marble into the shape you want.
Which is exhausting for everyone.
Right. But if your job is to nourish, you act like a gardener. The soil has already produced the seed. Your only job is to provide water and sunlight.
Yes.
The strength coach, Dan John, echoes this exactly. He says the greatest coaches do not demand transformation. They merely aspire to make a difference in their athletes' lives.
But maintaining that posture of nourishment is incredibly difficult because we are constantly stalked by two psychological thieves.
Always.
The first is comparison, which is famously the thief of joy.
Oh.
Comparison pulls your attention sideways. It forces you to measure the length and greenness of your branch against the branch next to you.
Which is a losing game.
Always. The second thief is distraction, the thief of time, which pulls your attention entirely out of the present moment and scatters it into the digital ether.
Both of those thieves are the ultimate ego feeders.
They really are.
The legendary basketball coach George Raveling writes about this extensively in his Sunday Thinking newsletter.
Oh, I love his stuff.
He defines true peace not as the absence of conflict, but as the connection of one human spirit to another. And he draws a razor-sharp distinction between competing against someone and competing with someone.
That distinction reveals the underlying root system of your entire life.
How so?
Because competing against someone operates on a fixed mindset. It is a zero-sum game. You measure your own worth by their diminishment.
If they win, I lose.
Exactly. But competing with someone is the ultimate expression of the growth mindset. It is the ancient concept of iron sharpening iron. You look at a competitor's excellence not as a threat to your identity, but as vital fuel to expose your own limits. The taproot contains infinite nutrients, right? Another branch thriving does not starve you.
Which completely redefines what it actually means to live a luxurious, successful life.
It does.
We are sold this idea that luxury is private jets, exclusive clubs, and frictionless living. But the real luxuries, the ones that actually regulate our nervous systems, are incredibly simple.
So simple.
They are calm days, slow mornings, physical health, and most importantly, a quiet mind.
Yes.
It goes all the way back to the Roman philosopher Cicero, who said, "We must eat to live, not live to eat." We have to understand what the mechanisms of life are actually for.
A meal is not supposed to be a performance of wealth. A morning is not just a block of time to optimize your productivity metrics.
Right.
They're opportunities to drop the shears and connect to the unhurried present.
There's a quote from the artist Jess Bird that I think perfectly encapsulates this entire outward posture. She writes, "How lucky are we to have people who love us as we bloom into every version of ourselves."
That is beautiful.
Think about the mechanics of that for yourself. What would it actually look like for you to be part of that living network for a friend or a partner? To completely drop the demand that they arrive in your life fully formed and perfect?
Which is an unfair demand anyway.
Totally. And instead, just commit to nourishing them as they bloom, version after messy version. You get to act as the conduit for the taproot's nutrients for the people you love most.
That is the ultimate, undeniable evidence of a connected human life.
So what does this all mean? We have covered a massive amount of psychological and philosophical ground today, but the core mechanics are clear.
Very clear.
Drop the ego and the certainty that act as shears. Have the courage to stand in front of the mirror and face reality. Make sure you are leaning your ladder against the right building, not just the shiniest one. And above all, guard your connection to the taproot.
Because knowledge only becomes wisdom when it alters your behavior. We don't want to leave you with abstract theory. We want to leave you with practical commitments.
Exactly. I want to pass these "this week I will" challenges directly to you. First, at some point this week, try to intentionally resist the urge to be right in just one conversation.
Just one.
When your amygdala flares, focus instead on what data you might be missing. Second, notice one specific moment where your ego flares up to defend itself, and actively choose the posture of humility instead.
That's a tough one, but important.
And finally, write down one thing you know you need to face but have been desperately avoiding. Name it on paper. Then simply decide what the very first step looks like.
And as you map out those steps, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over, drawing on the deepest mechanics we discussed today.
Okay.
We learned from Anthony DeMello that real lasting change is unwilled, and from Tolstoy that patience and time are our greatest warriors. So look at your own life right now. What is the one thing you are trying so desperately to force or manufacture that might just need you to stop traveling, sit still, take one conscious breath, and simply let it bloom?
What a question to carry with you. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, a cut flower might look beautiful on the table for a day or two, but true, lasting life only comes from the vine. Keep your taproot deep and your branches reaching for the light. We'll see you next time.